In this video, we are going to talk about truth tables. So hopefully you are already familiar with the terms not P, P and Q, the disjunction P or Q, the conditional statement, if P then Q, and lastly, P if and only if Q. Let's review when these are true or false. Okay, now the negation. That's just the opposite of what you have. If you have true, the negation is false. Conjunction. We also know this as and. This is only true when the P and the Q are true. All the other times it is false. The disjunction, we also know this as or. It's only false when both statements are false. So the P and the Q have to be false in order for the disjunction to be false. Conditional, also known as the if-then. It looks like it's false if the first statement is true and the second statement is false. Last one, biconditional, if and only if. If both statements are true, or if both statements are false, then the biconditional is true. And this is what we have talked about. Let's get started. I first want to start with this little example. Let's look at the statement P. Is P true or false? Is 10 greater than 3? Yes, this is true. What about Q? 2 is less than 5. That is true. So my P is true and my Q is true. Now let's determine the truth value for these two statements. I have P, well, it's true. And this is connected with a disjunction, an or. I have not Q. Well, Q is true, so not Q is false. So I have a true or false. Okay, remember in disjunction, it's only false when they're both false. So this is a true statement. Okay, let's look at the second one. Once again, remember P was true and Q was true. So I have not P, so not true, it's false. And I have not Q, and Q is true, so not true is false. They are both false, and so the disjunction is false. Now let's get into making a chart. I did put a little reminder down here at the bottom of the screen. Now when I'm making truth tables, it really doesn't matter how you start it, but in general, I usually do true, true, then true, false, false, true, false, false. My ultimate goal is to find not, and in parentheses, P or not Q. I'm going to first of all work in the parentheses. And what is not Q? Well, here's Q listed. So not Q would be false, true, false, and true. Okay, now I want to look at the P or not Q. Remember, that's a disjunction. And it's only false when they're both false. So I'm looking at this first column, the P, and the not Q. So it's only false when they're both false. And on the third line, the P is false, the not Q is false. So the P or not Q is false. But let's go back to the first line, true or false. That will be true. True, true is true, and false, true is still true. Okay, so I have done what is in the parentheses. And so I just have one more step. It's not what's in the parentheses. So since that's true, I will put false. And I'm just going down and doing the negation of each one. So my final answer will be false, false, true, false. So let's work on constructing another truth table. Once again, I have my P and Q ready to go. True, 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 false, false, true, false, false. My ultimate goal is to find, in parentheses, not P or Q, and not Q. Now, I probably write down a little bit more than most people. I like to have my columns, and I like them to be in order. Let's start with my parentheses. I need to find not P or Q. I'm going to first write down not P. So look at P, and we are now doing not P. Okay, once again, I didn't have to write this Q down again because that's exactly what Q is. True. I did this just because I like to look at it in order. So I am now trying to do the not P or Q. Now remember, this is an or, and the only time or is false is if they are both false, which looks like that will be in the second line. So I'm looking at not P or Q. Okay, so I have my parentheses. Now I need to talk about not Q. Once again, some people like to just look at it and try to think in their head. I like to write it down. So look at Q, and now we're going to do not Q. Okay, I'm ready to fill in my last column. And this is an and. So I have not P or Q and not Q. So I'm looking at these two columns. So with an and, it's only true if they are both true. So it looks like we have a false, 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 and the last one is true. Let's try one more. Now to help us out, I put our little reminder down here. So I'm going to look in the brackets first, and then even inside these brackets, I will look at the parentheses. So I need a P or Q. I made a column for that. I need a not P, and then I'll combine those with the and. Then I have a Q. So I'm going to write the Q again, even though I see it over there. Once again, I like to have everything in order. And then this is my final answer on the far right. Let's get going. Once again, I start with true, 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 false, false, true, and false, false. I have a disjunction, an or. So remember, it's mostly true. It's only false if they are both false. So true, true, true. And now they are both false. So P or Q will be false. Now not P. So look at your P column, and this is not P. So it would be false, false, true, true. Now I am combining my third column and my fourth column, and this is connecting them with a conjunction, an and. Let's remember, for an and, it is only true if they are both true. So I'm just going to skip right down to this third line. That is when it's true. They both have to be true. Okay, now I'm going to write down Q. True, false, true, false. Okay, we're on our last column. We have already done the P or Q and not P. And then I wrote Q again. And this is a conditional, an if-then. So this is false if the first statement is true and the second is false, which means it's mostly true. So false, true, that would be true. Remember, it's only false if the first one's true and the second one is false. So that will be true. Now here the first one is true, but the second one is true. So it's fine. And the last false, false, that is a true. So in another video, you will learn about a tautology when all possibilities are true.